Hey, this is your girl, Rashida Green, and you are listening to the Crossroads Podcast, a show for and about environmental justice and those who fight the fight with skin as melanated as the days are long. Knowledge is power, and we're breaking down stereotypes one episode at a time. Let's start the show. Hello, and welcome to the Crossroads Podcast. So I sat down with certified street journalist and filmmaker Ebrima Ba to discuss his documentaries and fifth annual festival, both titled Food, Clothing, and Shelter. Links to both documentaries are in the description box, as well as other resources gleaned from the interview. We're talking about urban farms, or as Ebrima likes to call them, earth schools. He spent many years at Roots of Change in Atlanta, filming the healing effects of farming. The next voice you hear will be Ebrima's, giving you his origin story.
My name is Ebrima Ba. I hail from Senegambia. This might have been maybe 23, 24 years ago. I've been in the States almost 20 years. I was interested in world travels, so I went a few places. And then I end up in the States just for a visit. And I was in Philadelphia, and I was ready to head back to either West Africa or go back to Europe. A friend of mine I knew back in Europe was already in Atlanta, he found my number and called me, convinced me that I should at least come to Atlanta before I leave because the people here look just like me. And he was very serious about that, so I decided to take him on that. I came to Atlanta back in 2000. And when I got here, it was quite interesting for me. I had a culture shock here on two levels, on two accounts. One was that, I seen progressive people here, progressive black people in all activities, in all areas. You see blacks in medical, in law enforcement, in media, you name it. Progressive things, intelligent folks, a beautiful city, very vibrant, colorful. And so I really had appreciated that as a young, progressive black young man. So I wanted to add on to that with my travel experience. But on the other end, also, I had a serious culture shock with the people on the fluctuation, with the homeless population. That really shocked me. I never seen anything like that. So it had me dropped everything I was doing. I mean, everything to the point that, you know, I wanted to make a film about my experience here, but didn't have the resources to do that. So I knew also my grandfather would not just be a witness and see something that's heartbreaking or heartfelt and just walk away. He would at least try to do the best he can for a situation like that. So what happened is that I decided to make a film, and I couldn't afford or had the money at the time to make a film. So I learned to make copper bracelets, and that took a while because I had to make so many bracelets, thousands of bracelets to make film. It's very expensive. So I made a film called Food, Clothing, and Shelter. That was volume one of my film. It didn't just showcase the people on the fluctuation or, poverty in America, but it also has a step towards a solution, which was us going back to our ancestral wisdom, attending to the land, growing the food, doing for ourselves. Because our elders back home had told us that when we come to America, we should also bear on the back of our mind that we are here on a pilgrimage, because simply because that our people were taken out of Africa and brought over here. So I really appreciate my elders for planting that seed in me, because not a lot of elders did that in Africa. If they all would have that teaching, it'd be a different situation. Our people will show more interest to their brothers and sisters in the diaspora.
Mm-hmm.
So those teachings really had me just sacrifice everything that I have. So I made the film. It took many years, like I said, but at the end, the film was made. So my grandfather really, you know, set the pace for me, because I've seen him did stuff like that, just help people when he couldn't even help some of us in the house. So when you witness stuff like that, you have no excuse. You have to use everything you have in you to be able to produce or to raise awareness about what you just witnessed. So that's what happened to me. That's how the film was made.
Hmm.
Volume one now has a festival behind it. Uh, June 8 would be the fifth annual Food, Clothing, and Shelter Festival.
Mm-hmm.
So um, that's coming up. We are all looking forward to that.
So, as far as going back a little bit to when you're talking about your grandfather, something else interesting that you and I spoke about was the Dogon people of Mali and how they, even till this day, rely very heavily on agriculture. And some of the great things that came out of your documentary, specifically Ripple Effect, was that they consider planting like weaving a cloth. Can you talk a little bit more about your documentary, but really like I want to talk about just how the history of the Dogon people in some ways inspired a lot of the content that you have in your
Yeah,
documentaries.
because I was thankful to read a book called The Science of the Dogon. And from an indigenous perspective, it gives me a very good insight as far as what I was facing in Atlanta and what I'm dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a chapter in that book called The Dogon Creation Story. And that creation story talked about how at one point Earth was really in a chaos, in a chaotic mood. There was no order over here, which the ancestors had to hurry up and come help alleviate the sufferings and the mischiefs that were happening because of lack of knowledge, ignorance.
Mm.
So eight of the ancestors came down from the heavens to restore order down here, and the best way they thought to do that was to bring with them life civilizing skills, such as plowing the land, weaving a basket, making a clay pot. So these are the basics that everybody civilized themselves off with. And agriculture played
Mm.
a major role because they came, tilled the soil, prepared the soil, planted in 8 rows in memory of the 8 ancestors that came. So um, I figured it out right there and then that this would be at least the step towards the solution is also using the same methods and the same examples, the same skills that were taught, the very first instructions that were given to us, which was to attend to the land and use the very first tools that also was given to us, our hands.
Right.
So that really makes sense to me. I really connected with that. So I decided to use that as a storyline for my second film, The Ripple Effect, and which is really, I mean, they say the Dogon said that when they came and tilled the soil and planted in 8 rows, uh, uh, 8 feet long, 8 rows, uh, in memory of the 8 ancestors. They said once the neighbor saw that, uh, the neighbor did the same, and then the next neighbor saw na- the the neighbor doing it, and they start doing it. Then the other neighbors saw the same thing, and they followed. So that's how it became a ripple. Everybody start doing the same thing. And back in Africa, that's how we learn. We learn from mimicking, you know. And it works for us very well
Mm-hmm.
because when we started off doing
My mind's blown
agriculture
right
here,
now.
a lot of us didn't know what was eatable and what was not eatable. So with the little basic skills that I had learned from my grandfather, my grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
my grandmother had a dry room in her house, which was stocked with crops to the roof. So as a child seeing that, it gave me a sense of security from hunger. So when I see homelessness and hunger, I knew that the people were not doing what grandma did because me as a child, I saw that we didn't have money or clothes, but at least we have food. So you have a sense of security from hunger, you know what I mean? So I just did the same and used those basic skills.
Yes.
And we all shared the little bit we know. People were coming from everywhere. And before you know it, we are all growers now, and it just reciprocate, it just ripples, and then connecting with the dirt. If you watch the second film, you hear the sister talked about taking her
Mm-hmm.
shoes off and planting her feet in the dirt,
And
and
putting
how
her
she
feet
had got
right in the
connected
earth.
and
Yes.
lost all her frustration that she came with all the way to the farm in the bus. She was frustrated till she got her feet in the soil. So testimonies like that had been recorded, a lot of it. We hear that all the time. Brothers and sisters talk about how when they come to the farm, it's like coming to church, it's like coming to school. So now we got this slogan called Earth Schools. Right now, I was just walking, helping a friend who helped us at the farm, and she's trying to start a Earth School at her place. So I'm staying with her while I'm in town for my film festivals. And we're trying to help her set up this Earth School in her neighborhood. So right now we're just spreading mulch and
Mm-hmm.
getting the garden ready. It's in a neighborhood where it's like a food forest. So it's also a lot of homelessness, a lot of drug activities, dilapidated homes. So to have a garden in a neighborhood like that, really brings value in the community and also allow the neighborhood children to have fruit trees to enjoy, fig trees, apple trees. You know, a lot of trees grow in the south, so the people are now starting to get in the habit
Yes.
of planting them again, just like their forefathers did. So it's a blessing. We just, bettering ourselves mentally, spiritually, and physically through the land, because that's where our true liberation lies. You know what I mean?
Yes, and something else that so first of all, as I told you before, I've watched both of the documentaries. I have so many notes and so many different connections that I
Beautiful.
was making while I was listening to it, and I really appreciate it. So one of the things that I really want to talk about is the lack of support that you felt and experienced from the local government. Like a lot of this work you did, you funded these documentaries, you helped and worked with
Yes,
Roots
correct.
of Change, funding it with production of your bracelets, which is self determination. But explain that, like describe that experience, and also the way it immediately prompted you to just do it on your own.
Yeah, because it takes a lot of work try to like ask for funding from somebody, and these days the way things are set up, you have to meet certain standards. So for me, going through the circles, I couldn't really do it when I'm inspired by something that really touched my life like nothing else ever did. So for me to sit and wait for a grant, which I finally tried after a few friends convinced us to go that route. And I feel like as an artist, waiting for somebody to give me money to work on something that really means something to me uh, was really not clicking with me. So we end up not getting the grant. So the project is serious to me. Again, I learned to make these bracelets. It took a lot of work, a lot of support. The community really shows support because they know this is their brothers and their sisters and their uncles and fathers and mothers that are left out on the street. They're just not homeless people. They're a little more than that, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so people like that really support it, you know. Um, so it taught me a lot, you know. It taught me self-reliance. And the films too, once they were made, the community really didn't, you know, you would think the art community would receive it with open arms. But some of them thought that I had exposed something that was not to be exposed, you know.
Hmm.
So that was a little disappointed. But it's not like that every state. So now I'm in Minnesota up north. They really appreciate these films, you know, and they see the effort and the hard work and the love and community service that went in there, you know. So and that's the approach for me.
Yeah.
I knew that it was gonna be tough for some people to swallow. So I was making it from the perspective that I was making it for the children, you know, for the future generation. And I had to make these films, spend 18 years of my life making these films, and put them on YouTube for free. Because I tried the
Right.
film festival circus, and they just took my money. You know, I rejected the film, never told me what the reason behind, how could I improve, nothing. And then some of the film festival come to find out,
Hmm.
um, it was not even, it was Europeans that selecting the films that make it to the Pan African Film Festival. So that was a little
Wow.
disappointing too, that somebody else may not be able to measure the work of, black children, because it'd be very difficult for you to put your feet in their shoes and experience their everyday life. So whatever they create and create it out of nothing, you know, um, really has to be credited. You know what I mean? So I really don't, do the festivals anymore. Now I work with other producers and have them put the films in the festival. Uh, at the time, for me, like I said, it's just a serious issue and a serious matter for me on my pilgrimage here in America is seeing that. And even though I may not have all the best technical equipments to make, a Hollywood film, even though I spend all my money in good cameras, so I have quality image. But on the technical
It was
part, some
good.
people, oh, it's missing this, oh, it's missing that, oh, maybe he has an accent, or his English is not that well. But I really didn't care about any of that. Like I said, I had a story to tell. And as long as the people could understand what I'm saying and what I'm putting together, that's what really meant something to me.
This episode of the Crossroads podcast is brought to you by the Black Sustainability Summit. The Black Sustainability Summit is an annual gathering of sustainability experts designed to inform and empower. Presenters cover the most pressing topics in the Black community, from sustainable economies to water purification. Ready to change the world? Visit www.blacksustainabilitysummit.com. Let's get back to the show. Well, we've reached the crossroads, the intersection between the farm and our tables, self-determination, the Dogon, and homelessness. Ebrima describes their connection as he accounts for his time spent with hands deep in dirt.
You'll have a farm full of people, 30, 40 people. You have attorneys, you have artists, you have students, you have children, you have grandpa, grandma, you have everybody in there, and their hands is in the dirt. And I bet you couldn't tell who came from the shelter and who the attorney is. And we are all at each other's level. And we walk for several hours, and we all share a plant-based diet at the end of the day and have a great time. We didn't sell the food, we shared the food. We helped increase each other's knowledge. We shared information. We learned about plants. We learned about how to turn plants into products, like making natural okra shampoos.
Yes, the okra
Uh,
shampoo.
right, so It's very creative in the farm. People come up with all kinds of projects and ideas, whether it's with food or with craft. So our brothers from the shelters really appreciated a very positive environment where they see people who look like them creating and coming together, working together in disciplined ranks, not fussing, not arguing, loving each other, eating plant-based diet, just allowing themselves to grow and experience, the reason why we are here. So when they come to that
Right.
environment, it's very difficult for them to be dropped off back to the shelter. And they will tell you, I don't even want to go back to the shelter. So the environment is very important. It's key. If you are in an environment that don't support your growth, you're pretty much suppressing yourself. So a lot of us are in that kind of mode of growth. We're really in an environment that we didn't create for ourselves.
Yes.
So
And one that we are learning to adapt to or having no choice but to figure out how to adapt to it.
and we are melanated people. We have to be around nature. You know, um, Nature really help balance us out. And keep us more inspired and more happy, joyful. But you can see that problem now in Africa too, because um, we all went to these schools now. And we all think
Yes.
civilization is to destroy nature, cut down the trees, build a sky rise. So it's affecting the children everywhere. So it's a very important topic to talk about. I know black children here that their parents work hard to put them in a good position, put them in good schools, try to get them good jobs, but their children still have a hard time being in this environment because they don't feel like it support their growth, their being, and their mother's parents are wondering what happened to my child, why he can't keep a job, why he can't do this. And I have those same brothers, bring them to the farm, and you see them use the best value of their education, helping at the farm, helping the children, taking notes with them, telling them about plants. I mean, intelligence at its fullest. One is with me right now. He helped me do these. He helped me with the technical support.
For today,
You know, yeah, Netta, exactly.
whew, thank
You
God for
know,
these children.
and so environment is key.
Yes, it is.
You could set up a environment that you think, oh yeah, this is flashy and glossy, and the child is like, you know what? I prefer a little more natural environment. So we can't really forget about that as we create and invent. And that's why our elders built certain way in Egypt, in Kemet, and their structures still stand, and the most sufficient structures. So we have to really assimilate with the knowledge of our elders, just like with the Dogon. Our people had the answers.
Hmm.
But if we assimilate with something else that's not us, then we're just pretending and trying to pretend to do something that's really not us. So it gets very complicated, and so that's an issue too. That's we are dealing with home and abroad.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
something else to kind of to piggyback on that was what was mentioned throughout both of the documentaries was the importance of relationship building. And what I noticed in watching both of them is that not only you had to, like, for instance, Rashid Nuri, who hopefully
Hmm.
I'll be interviewing soon.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
mentioned.
Make sure you speak to him about the
Oh, I
film
am,
too.
because he was in it,
All
and I
right,
have
great.
some. Yo,
All
yeah,
right,
I took
all
that
right, good.
right down. Yeah, so.
All right, great.
But one of the things he said a lot of great things, but one thing he mentioned is that he tried to go to investors to
Right,
get
right, right.
funding for his farm, and they were like, "Well, no,
Yeah,
we haven't seen that. Why don't you? We can give you money
right,
for a
correct.
McDonald's or a Burger
Yeah,
King, but no one's doing
yeah.
a farm." And then
Hmm.
cut to Sevananda, who I'm
Hmm.
organic company that I'm very familiar with in Atlanta,
Yes.
was one of their first investors, and it just
Right, correct.
and
Yeah.
it's just really it's frustrating because now, of course, he was doing this years ago, but now it's everybody wants to have a farm. And everyone wants
Exactly.
to, we're talking farm to table, but when it comes
Exactly.
down to who is getting that money, it doesn't seem to be people, who look like us. And we usually end up
Right.
having to work with each other and just try
Right.
to pool our resources together. Like one of the documentaries mentioned how Dr. King, when he would go to these small towns, would the farmers would put their land
Yeah.
up as collateral. So when
Right.
he got
Correct. Exactly.
arrested, he had
Yeah.
a way to get it bailed out. And it's
Right.
like, so just wanting to saying all that to say, like, talk about like the relationships and the folks that you've met who've helped you to continue to not just make the films but work in the earth schools, etc.
Right. No doubt. Like you say, Baba Rashid. That's our elder. That's my Baba right there. I have ultimate respect for him. That's like my father. I had called him several places to come help us out, and you know, the Food, Clothing, and Shelter Fest, the very first year he came, he was the keynote speaker. We went to Georgia Tech with our film. He was there. I mean, he's very serious about this movement and studied for it too. I think he has a master's in
Yeah,
agriculture.
he went to Harvard for undergrad too.
Right, right. So, he's definitely a leader. So he like talking about grant banks not giving grants to these people. They just don't understand. These are the backbones of the nation. So if you go to other states like in Minnesota, the stuff is popping off over there because their city officials are moved by the people, and the people are
Right.
interested in sustainability, in organic eating, in you know. So their city officials are working with the people, and so they are prospering. So, and speaking about Savananda, it shows you the power of co-op. So up north,
Yes.
they are very co-op oriented. Even if you're a politician, you want to go to the co-op to meet the people with the mindset to help your campaign, and because that's where everybody come. It's at the co-op. Everybody that's politically informed or socially conscious, they come to the co-op. So even the politicians up north, that's where they want to come. That's where they want to shop, so they could meet the local people, the local shakers, and they could be familiar with these people. Uh, in Atlanta, it's more like the community is who is funding uh, their own initiatives. So if the city was part of this, then you will see that Atlanta would even move faster, and Atlanta would be a lead not only for the United States but for the whole world, South America, uh, Africa, India, because what's happening here right now, you have vegan restaurants everywhere in Atlanta. They about to almost out. I mean, I made a joke yesterday. Tell my friend that vegan restaurants are almost about to outrun fast food restaurants. That's how advanced the community in Atlanta is. I didn't see that up north as advanced as they are. I mean, they got good eateries, but vegan restaurants are
Yes, they
taking over
are.
like
Shout out to Slutty
wildfire in
Vegan.
Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
and the people are prospering. So that means growing more kale. That means growing more tomatoes. That means growing more okra.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? So that's the backbone of the nation. But the people are doing it regardless, and they know that their city officials would finally catch up with them. So as you could see, Rashid Nori said, "We don't
Yes.
grow food anymore; we grow people." So if he had the support, he would have been growing food. If the
Right.
support was there to grow the people, but instead of growing the food, he's now growing people. So once you grow the people, they're gonna
And then
grow the
really what
food.
that comes back to is just the importance of knowledge. And that is the
Yes,
beautiful thing about the earth schools is really, that it's not just that you're out and doing a task that you're assigned, you're learning why you're doing it. You're learning where things need to be
Right,
planted. You know,
exactly.
you're
Yeah.
learning permaculture. That's actually physically
Yes.
being done in front of you.
Yeah.
And that's more, to me, is just
Right.
as, if not more so important than learning it in a classroom. Talk to me a little bit more about your festival and any other films or documentaries that you're working on.
This is the fifth annual Food, Clothing, and Shelter Fest. It's going to be at the Lake Claire Community Lion Trust. It's a beautiful green space, and usually it's wrapped around uh, the urban farmers, the growers. So you have a lot of vendors bringing their produce from the farm, things that they had made with their products. A lot of artists, some of the best local acts would be there. Like I don't no longer administrate it. Thankfully, I had turned it over to the community to whom it belongs to. So it's a young brother named Vici. He's leading the operation there, and Vici is also an artist. He's a singer, incredible singer, and so he's connected with all the local musicians in town. So the music is always great. Some of the best acts, like I said, hip hop, reggae, I mean, drum and dance. Um, it keeps growing every year, so it keeps getting better. I wasn't there last year, but I had multiple calls, people telling me how beautiful the festival was. So also when I did it, I make sure we party with a purpose. We were able to raise showing machines for the refugee women in Claxton, and they're making incredible work with those showing machines. So I look forward to this year what the young brothers and sisters have in mind and what they're going to be doing. So I'll be there just supporting Lake Claire Community Lion Trust. That's at 280 Arizona Avenue, Atlanta, Georgia 30307. And the festival is June 8th. Yes, from noon till 10 p.m. But also, I am in town because I have a recent film I did called Path. It's some of it's sum up both of volume one and two that you see, and it's called Path, Path, and it's a goodbye letter to America. Because, like I said, like you said, with the funding and all the work it took to make these projects, it could be overwhelming. So I was really exhausted and ready to go back home to Africa. But also, I wanted to show my brothers and sisters here that this is how the projects were made. You know, nobody gave us nothing. It was all based on self-reliant, a lot of sacrifice. And so I made my final uh, decision and notes, and you know, put up a film together and had a screening, and all my loved ones came. Everybody that I know in the community, sold out theater, and was ready to go to Africa, head to Minnesota where I have cousins and everything, to leave from there. But Africa told me, you know, because being gone for many years, I guess I didn't really build anything over there, so my trip would be very premature to come over there. Even though I told them about projects I was involved with, but again, you know, a lot of times when you touch on sensitive topics like so-called homelessness, you may most likely also be associated with hopelessness. So it made it real a little difficult for the filmmaker. So I had to stay a little longer and get my ducks in rows, and hopefully next year I'll be making that trip. But that film Path is in the film festivals, Kenton, Georgia Film Festival, Etowah Film Festival. That's May 25th, Saturday at 4:30. Also in the Georgia Documentary Film Festival, the 1st of June. So I'm here to promote those and to let the community know about them. And at the same time, it's the Food, Clothing, and Shelter Fest. So I would stay for that and party with my brothers and sisters, and then head back out north. So we have a website called foodclothingandshelter.org, and also the bracelet that help us um, do all these projects, films, community gardens. Those bracelets also could be purchased at coppernumo.com. Copper and then Numo, Numo. Numo is also from the Dogons, which means the Force teachers. Yeah, so they taught the people about metalsmith and all these
Nice.
beautiful skills that we are using and bettering ourselves today. And I'm thankful that we are using it too to make films and to help promote our struggle and our revolution, which is to grow food, to help raise the consciousness, get grounded. So we thank you so much, Sailor,
Hey.
for everything that you do, for having us on your
Ooh.
podcast. And we wish you best of regards in school, because knowledge is power, like we said, and our people need your knowledge just like they need mine. So teamworks make the dream work. And thank you for including the street journalists and street journalism and food, clothing, and shelter, Earth Schools. It's great the reunion of my family, me and my brothers and sisters here, because in America the people here are exposed. So if we just help with the little basics, they would help the rest of the world. Because they are more exposed to things than anybody else anywhere you could be on Earth. So I have a lot of I'm touched and inspired by everybody, but especially our people here. I'm really inspired by their story. I've never seen a story like it or come across it, and they are very resilient and determined. So I'll do my best to contribute on that
Yeah,
anyhow I
and
can.
you are so
Thank you
welcome. And
again.
I sorry I was trying to cut in to talk about the copper bracelets because first and foremost, shout out to the copper bracelets for making these dreams
Word, I'm
come to
saying.
life. Okay, like
That's
shout
right,
out to the
baby
copper
girl. You
bracelets,
already
bro.
know. You know what I'm saying?
Like because and not just because they were
That's
a
right, yeah.
means for you to obviously support yourself and make these films, but like
Right,
getting
right,
metaphysical real quick, like the copper is a very
right.
healing metal. You talked about how the energy of it just helps to renew and rejuvenate your spirit, and it was and the fact that you knew that and the three lines that you etched into them.
Yeah, yeah, correct. Well, I learned all of some of these things too. I learned here, because like I said, Pan African Pan Africanism is
Yes, it
big
is,
here, so
especially in
we are
Atlanta.
very thankful for all the scholars, you know what I'm saying, for all the teachings, all the research. But they did the same too. Baba Hendry Clark, he died supposedly, not so-called rich or lots of money. Dr. Ben, you know what I'm saying? May he rest
Ashe.
in perfect peace, rise in power. But the elder, he made his transition in a nursing home. Can you imagine? So our elders gave so much. So for me, making banging copper bracelets, and when I think about those elders, you know what I'm saying? I'm just
Yeah.
motivated, you know what I mean? So I keep banging them bracelets. And copper is a versatile and a useful metal, both for metaphysical and physical
Mm-hmm.
healing purposes. Copper also resonates with the earth element and teaches the ancient ways of working in balance with the planet and all the beings upon it. So it brings us all to each other's level.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it grounds us, it helps increase our
Yep.
blood circulation, make indicators for us. So it's the metal for the movement.
Yeah.
You know what
And
I mean?
and as we're kind of
Yeah,
coming to the
yeah.
end of the show, I just again, I want to thank you for making time today. I want to thank you also for having me go down a super dark, deep rabbit hole of looking up that kudzu juice that the one of the ladies in the documentary was making. Oh
Right,
man.
right, right. Sister Almera, that's right, correct. Those are brilliant sisters, very intelligent. Every time somebody watch the film, they ask me, "Oh, where'd you get those girls from?" Especially the
Yes.
elder sisters. Where you get those girls from? So it's a blessing. It's a lot of
Mhm.
knowledge out here. A lot of our people are just really they're keeping their eyes, their minds in books, research,
Yeah.
studying, And that's the only way we could get out of this. So I want to thank you. I also want to thank the sister Lena
Yes.
for into making this introduction, because she also has a very powerful role that
Yes.
she played. I mean, that she work on, and ultimate respect to her wherever she is
Black
right now.
Sustainability Summit, which is a sponsor of this
Yeah,
show. Every time, yeah, all the
right,
interviews that I'll be
exactly.
doing coming
Yeah, so
down are all going to be because of Raina and all the contacts that she gave me, and obviously you are one of them.
I'm just so I'm just so proud. The more we have our sisters involved, the quicker we'll get this job done. You know what I mean? So I thank my sisters. Much
Yes,
love.
definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Next time, I'll be sitting down with Steve King to talk about education and green jobs. I'll catch you later.